Thank you for having me on.
It's that icy gaze. Like, honestly, Paul, the first time that you've been doing this for 13 years now. The first time when contestants see those blue eyes in person, are they like, oh, God, oh, God?
They normally ask me, are they contact lenses, which, of course, they're not. But, I mean, they're pretty chilled out now. I think as the series has gone on year by year, I think they know what to expect, you know what I mean? So they know what flavours I like, they know what flavours Prue likes, and I think they play to that a little bit as well.
Yeah, they're more prepared and they're ready to perform for you guys. 13 years, Paul. After all these years of Bake Off, 13 years in the show, I suppose you wouldn't attribute that success to the cakes, the bakers, or even the hosts. I suppose it's all down to you, really, isn't it?
It actually, I mean, we're the frame. I've said this before. We're the frame of the picture. The picture's always been the bakers. The bakers are always the stars, which obviously every year we have a brand new set of stars.
Yeah.
But I just think the bakers are amazing. I mean, to do what they do in the tent. I mean, I remember Matt stepping in a few years ago on a celebrity one, and he was really nervous. I mean, really nervous. And it gets to everybody, honestly. It gets to everybody, celebrities or not.
I think it's funny because during the pandemic, everyone was kind of rewatching it, and it was this big warm hug that we had as well when the series was on. We were like, thank God that they've gone into lockdown together for us. But going back to the first series, a friend of mine has just started watching it, and she's like, hold on, in series 1, it was like a 4-year-old had knocked a few fairy cakes together and they'd get through to the next round. And now it's like you've got to be able to do the Leaning Tower of Pisa or the Eiffel Tower in biscuit on week 1. The standard has changed.
It has. I mean, you're going to attract different bakers. And I think, obviously, they've all learned a little bit about baking anyway in their lives. But I think Bake Off's helped. And I think people have naturally got better. And we're obviously enticing the good bakers into the tent. And you can tell because the handshakes have got more. I mean, it annoys me because I have to give out more handshakes and I don't want to. But because they're more like professionals now. They're so polished when they come in.
Yeah, on the subject, I'm sure you got a lot of stick, particularly in COVID times, for the Hollywood handshake in terms of, sanitizing and too much contact. But how did the handshake begin? I mean, did you set it up that this is going to become a thing, or was it an organic creation?
I think it was just an organic thing. Sometimes someone does well, you go, well done, you've done a great job. I mean, either pat them on the back or shaking their hand, and it was as innocent as that. I think it was series 2, possibly 3, where it started. And obviously over the years the standards got better and therefore the Hollywood handshake comes out a lot more. I mean, it's really weird. I've had people, big celebrities from the US, Blake Lively, who's Ryan Reynolds' partner. She did a cake on Instagram and said, if I don't get a Hollywood handshake with this, I give up. So someone contacted me. So on Instagram, I just sent an emoji of a handshake like this. And they were like, she was, oh, wow. And she repeated it and then put it out on her site. I was like, wow, this is crazy. This is really bad.
It's fascinating. And I'd say, like, when you meet people in real life and they're going like, no, you got to give me some food before I give you that handshake.
Yeah, I get that all the time. I get a builder coming in. He builds the wall. He comes in to shake my hand and say, where's my cake? That's funny, but where's my cake?
I need a bit of sugar before you get the hand.
I think with this year, there has been, like, I'm sitting down and I hate cooking. I just think it looks like work. There has been more cooking on Bake Off this year, which a lot of people have been like, what's going on with that? So what was the decision behind that, Paul?
Well, I think we've always done, if you're doing a pie, you have to cook something to go inside the pie. And so we've always done things that are anything related to something in a bakery, basically. So if it's in a bakery, it's going to be in the Bake Off tent. And that's the general rule. So if you see something in a bakery, regardless where it is in the world, it will end up in the tent. So there may be an element of cooking to the baking, but yes. Things like crumpets aren't baking, but it's got yeast in and baking powder. So that's the crossover bit, Oh,
you're getting us on the yeast with the tortillas. Is that it? There's a bit of yeast, so we're going to lash in a tortilla.
Well, not in tortillas, but again, tortillas is all about is flour. So it's really, if there's a relationship with flour and the product itself, then yeah, we'd certainly look at it for going into the 10s for sure.
He's been asked that a few times this season. I've got a feeling with that what's going on with cooking.
We mentioned a minute ago, Paul, that you trained originally. You trained as a sculptor originally, and I suppose there would be an element of the artistry or the artistic element of like these creations having to live up to your expectations on screen.
Yeah, I think there is. I mean, obviously, I was manipulating clay before in art school, which I quite enjoyed, and building armatures. And you do a very similar thing now, you know, whether it's with dough or sugar paste, and you're manipulating it and shaping it to something pretty. I remember years ago, I did a Christmas cake for a hotel I was working at, and the cake was the bed, and I did 12 mice in bed with a quilt over the top, and it was all intricate, and they put little their stockings down by the side, and painted chocolate for the floor and Santa's. So it's all very artistic, and I think the sculpting side of things has certainly helped.
Yeah. And it was that because you trained to that, and then your dad convinced you to come back into the family business because it's in the blood. But was it some monks in Rosscray that were like, "Come here, will you join up?"
I was doing some filming there it's probably nearly 20 years ago now. And I heard about Rosscray, and I went to the monastery, the Cistercian monks.
Yeah.
And the prior there, I think Kevin was there at the time. And I went to go and see how they make their bread, because they had a really old belt-driven machine to mix all the dough, and it's fascinating. So I spent a couple of days with them making bread. And the problem is, the monks are getting older, and there's no one there to replace them. And so the prior pulled me to one side. He said, "Can you come to my office?" And I said, "Yes, certainly." And he said, "Paul," he said, "I think you should become a monk." I went, "What?" There's a couple of problems with that.
Your grand.
Well done for keeping it breakfast telly. Well done.
Yeah, well done, Sarah. It's pre-watershed. The book is beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. I felt like munching on the pages. One of those situations where it's like, beautiful. I'm never going to make any of these, but I love looking at the pictures. It's been 5 years since the last book. What inspired this one?
Well, I think during lockdown, I had plenty of time. In lockdown, we did a 7-week lockdown in Bake Off when we were filming. And so I had 7 weeks of sitting there in the room at night going, Prue was writing another book. I think Matt was doing some writing for his songs. And I thought, I need to do something. I'd already sort of got together a rough book, and it was a time of sitting down. I had plenty of time in the evening. And it came together really well. And I really enjoyed doing it because I was already in Bake Off mode anyway. And the book just came together. And it's an update on the classics, really. Yeah. It's things that I like, so it's very indulgent, you know.